The crystal chandeliers of the Hanover Grand Ballroom sparkled like 1,000 tiny stars, casting shimmering reflections onto the polished marble floors. It was supposed to be a night of celebration. The Hanover Children's Trust Gala was the city's most prestigious event, where the wealthy and powerful gathered in glittering gowns and custom-tailored tuxedos, drinking champagne and exchanging smiles laced with subtle competition. But for 28-year-old Lily Whitmore, it would become the night everything shattered. She stood near the champagne fountain, visibly pregnant 6 months along. Her silk emerald gown clung delicately to her round belly, and her fingers instinctively rested there like a shield. Her soft curls were pinned up, diamond earrings catching the light as she tried to blend in, to stay strong, to not let the anxiety twisting in her gut show. Her husband, Andrew Whitmore, was nowhere in sight. Or at least, she thought he was still running late, until the crowd around the entrance stirred with murmurs and snapping phone flashes. Lily turned instinctively toward the grand staircase, and her world stopped. Descending in perfect rhythm to the swelling orchestral music was Andrew, dashing as ever in his tailored navy tux, his hand wrapped possessively around the waist of a statuesque brunette in a daring crimson dress. The woman's laughter rang out, crystalline and cruel, as if she knew she was stepping into someone else's story and enjoying every moment of it. Lily's breath caught. Her chest tightened. Her husband, the man she had loved, supported, and trusted, was parading his mistress in front of hundreds of people, many of whom knew Lily, respected her, and had seen her standing alone just minutes earlier. The whispers spread like wildfire. "Isn't he still married? Is that his wife over there? Oh my God, she's pregnant. Wow, that's cold, even for Andrew Whitmore." Lily's hand trembled, nearly knocking over her champagne glass. A kindly older woman standing beside her tried to whisper something comforting, but the words didn't land. All Lily could do was stare, frozen, as Andrew laughed with his mistress and accepted air kisses and congratulatory nods, as though nothing was wrong, as though he hadn't completely annihilated his wife's dignity in front of the entire room. The woman on his arm? Madison Vale, a former model turned brand ambassador, known more for her Instagram clout than any real accomplishment. She was everything Andrew used to claim he despised: vain, superficial, obsessed with status. But there he was, basking in the attention, showing her off like a trophy. As the orchestra swelled and the gala program began, Lily stood perfectly still, rage and humiliation boiling beneath her skin. Every eye that flicked her way felt like a dagger. Every polite smile felt like pity. And worst of all, Andrew hadn't even acknowledged her. No glance, no guilt. Nothing. Just 3 weeks earlier, he had kissed her forehead before heading off on a business trip and promised they'd look at nursery furniture together when he returned. Now she realized that trip was likely with her, the woman currently draped on his arm. Lily clutched her belly tighter. The baby kicked gently, as if sensing her distress. Tears stung the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them back. This was not the place. Not tonight, not in front of them. A waiter passed by with a tray of drinks. She grabbed one without thinking, then realized she couldn't even drink it. She set it down untouched. The humiliation burned deeper. She had spent the last 5 years building her life around Andrew, supporting his tech startup, stepping back from her own career in interior design, and believing his promises. When they'd struggled with infertility for 2 years, it had been her who stayed optimistic. When the test finally turned positive, it had been her who cried with joy while he remained stoic, saying, "We'll figure it out." Now, 6 months later, this was how he repaid her. The mistress whispered something in Andrew's ear, and he chuckled. His signature, smug laugh. Then, to Lily's absolute horror, they danced, right there in the center of the ballroom floor. Madison's arms wrapped tightly around his neck, her dress flashing with every spin like a warning flare. And that was it. Something inside Lily snapped. She turned on her heel, her heels clicking against the marble floor with measured fury. She didn't care who saw her leave. She didn't care that she'd come alone, or that the photographers were now following her exit like a second scandal unfolding. All she cared about was getting out before she lost control, before the tears claimed her in front of the same people who now whispered, "Poor thing," as she walked past. She didn't cry in the elevator. She didn't cry in the parking lot. She didn't cry until she was safely in the back seat of her Uber, curled protectively around her stomach, her voice a whisper. "I'm so sorry, baby. I didn't know he was this heartless." The driver didn't say a word. He just drove in silence, eyes kind, in the rearview mirror. When Lily got home to their luxury apartment, no, his luxury apartment, she corrected, she walked straight to the bedroom. Every piece of furniture, every framed photo, every monogrammed pillow now felt like a lie. On the dresser was a stack of paperwork, court documents, custody petitions, the ones she had tried to ignore for days. Andrew had filed for full custody of her baby. The betrayal doubled. He wasn't just abandoning her. He wanted to take her child. He wanted to erase her. And at that moment, staring at the paper, something shifted in Lily. She wasn't going to be erased. Lily Rose Whitmore, née Keller, was never the kind of woman who needed a spotlight to shine. At 28, she radiated a quiet, magnetic strength like a lighthouse in a storm. She didn't command attention with flashy outfits or dramatic gestures. Instead, she made people feel seen, heard, safe. It was that softness that first drew Andrew to her. And ironically, it was that very softness he would later weaponize against her. Born in a sleepy town outside of Charleston, South Carolina, Lily was the only child of George and Martha Keller, high school sweethearts who'd built a life of modest comfort and old-fashioned values. Her father ran the family hardware store. Her mother taught third grade at the local elementary school. Their life wasn't glamorous, but it was full of love. Every Friday night was pizza and movie night. Sundays meant church, followed by homemade peach cobbler. Lily was a dreamer, quiet, observant, creative. She spent her childhood sketching tree houses and reimagining furniture layouts in her bedroom. By high school, she was designing makeovers for friends' rooms and helping neighbors decorate for the holidays. She had a natural eye for space, balance, and beauty. Her guidance counselor once called her a born interior architect. She earned a scholarship to the Savannah College of Art and Design, majoring in interior design with a minor in sustainable architecture. She graduated with honors and 2 job offers, one from a boutique design firm in Atlanta and one from a bigger, shinier firm in New York. She chose New York, hungry to prove herself in the city that never sleeps. It was at a tech launch party, one she almost skipped, that she met Andrew Whitmore. He was everything her parents warned her about: charming, ambitious, unpredictable. A fast-talking startup founder with a smirk that suggested he'd never heard the word no in his life. And yet, Lily was intrigued. Andrew was relentless about chasing her, sending orchids to her office, waiting outside her apartment, with takeout from her favorite Thai spot, memorizing her coffee order like it was a secret password to her world. Against her better judgment, she fell hard. At first, it was magical. Andrew was attentive, funny, passionate. He made big promises and had even bigger dreams. They explored art galleries on Saturdays, debated over wine about startup culture, and danced barefoot in the kitchen to 90s R&B. He encouraged her to open her own design firm. "You've got talent," he said. "People should pay a premium just to hear you talk about wallpaper." Within a year, they were engaged. 6 months later, they were married in a small vineyard ceremony in Napa. Lily in a simple silk gown, her bouquet made of white peonies and eucalyptus. Andrew cried when she walked down the aisle. She believed every tear. For a while, they were a team. Or so she thought. Lily slowly stepped back from her growing list of clients to support Andrew's startup, which had just entered Series A funding. She began managing their household, attending investor dinners, even helping redesign his office to impress clients. She didn't mind at first. She loved building something together. She loved him. But as Andrew's company grew, his gratitude shrank. The calls became shorter, the dinners colder. He began rolling his eyes when she mentioned design trends. "You really think people care about throw pillows right now?" he once snapped. He stopped inviting her to events, saying things like, "It's mostly tech guys, you'd be bored." Her world shrank to 4 walls and a man who seemed increasingly irritated by her presence. Still, Lily clung to hope. She suggested counseling. He refused. She tried planning romantic getaways. He canceled. And when the positive pregnancy test appeared one quiet Thursday morning, she cried tears of joy, believing this baby would bring them back together. Andrew's reaction was complicated. At first, he smiled, kissed her forehead, said all the right things, but within days, he became distant. "We'll figure it out," was his mantra. "Just don't stress me out right now, I've got a funding round coming." Lily said okay. Again and again, she read every baby book, went to every appointment, documented every milestone on a private Instagram he never checked. He promised he'd be there for the 20-week ultrasound. He no-showed. Still, she made excuses for him, to her friends, to her parents, even to herself, until the night of the gala. That night didn't just destroy her trust. It destroyed her illusions. The Andrew she saw on that ballroom floor, laughing, dancing, pretending she didn't exist, wasn't the man she married. Maybe he never was. Now back in their apartment, Lily realized something terrifying and empowering. She had no one to lean on but herself. No family in the city, no active career at the moment. A baby due in 3 months. And a husband who was not only emotionally gone, but now legally threatening to take full custody of a child he'd barely acknowledged. What made it worse? He might succeed. Andrew came from money. He had a legal team on retainer. His family was politically connected, and his startup had just closed a massive Series C round. He had influence. He had spin. And Lily? She had a pregnancy pillow and a storage unit full of nursery items she bought herself. That's it. But what Andrew didn't realize, what he had never understood, was that Lily Whitmore wasn't weak. She wasn't some sad, weepy wife who'd go quietly. She might have sacrificed everything for him, but she hadn't lost herself. The woman who once built homes for high-end clients from scratch was still here. The girl who left her small town for the biggest city in the country? Still here. The woman carrying a life inside her? Still standing. And she was done begging for dignity. The Whitmore penthouse was everything the city envied. Towering above Fifth Avenue, it occupied the entire top floor of the Langston residences. A building with its own private elevator, biometric security, and concierge staff who knew how to disappear when necessary. The glass walls provided a panoramic view of Central Park on one side and the glittering Manhattan skyline on the other. Each room had been designed by a European architect whose work appeared in luxury design magazines more often than on actual blueprints. Inside, it was a shrine to power. The living room featured a 9-foot chandelier imported from Austria. The custom Italian marble floors reflected everything like a mirror, making guests feel both important and exposed. A grand piano no one played sat in one corner, purely for image. Sculptures lined the hallway, chosen more for their price tags than meaning. And in the heart of it all was the fireplace, where Andrew liked to conduct business, not in boardrooms, not over conference calls. Here, this wasn't a home. It was a stage. When Lily first moved in after their wedding, she was overwhelmed, not by the luxury but by how cold it felt. No family photos, no keepsakes, no scent of cinnamon or lavender, the smells that used to comfort her back in Charleston. So she tried to soften it. She added fresh flowers every Friday, framed wedding photos, and a cozy reading nook with thrifted books and a vintage armchair. Andrew hated it. "This isn't a bed and breakfast," he scoffed one night, glaring at the blanket she had draped over the couch. "We're not staging comfort, we're building status." That's when Lily realized. She lived in a museum curated by a man obsessed with perception, and she was just another carefully placed exhibit until she became inconvenient. The gala that changed everything had been planned months in advance. Held at the Regal Hanover Hotel, it was the kind of event that attracted Forbes billionaires, media moguls, senators, and old money heiresses who never wore the same gown twice. The ballroom alone could hold 500, but tonight, only the top 200 had made the guest list. Everything gleamed, gold trim along the walls, floating candlelight from candelabras suspended in glass orbs, hand-rolled sushi plated on crystal slabs. Champagne was poured from magnum bottles engraved with the gala's logo. The air smelled like luxury perfume and ambition. And Lily, visibly pregnant, had walked into this world completely alone. Andrew hadn't told her not to come. In fact, he hadn't mentioned the gala at all. She found out from a friend who forwarded her a media alert. Whitmore Tech CEO to announce new global education fund at Hanover Gala. That was her husband's name. That was their baby's future being used as PR. She decided she had every right to be there. Her gown was modest compared to the glittering mesh bodices and thigh-high slits worn by the others. But it was elegant, a rich emerald green silk that hugged her curves without trying too hard. Her hair was swept into a low bun, her makeup soft but defined. She walked in with her chin high, the way her mother had taught her. "You never walk into a room like you're hoping for approval," her mom once said. "You walk in like you belong there." For the first 20 minutes, no one noticed her. Then they did. And then Andrew walked in. With her. Madison Vale, the woman who had posted Instagram stories from Paris the same week Andrew was supposedly in San Francisco for meetings. Madison, whose most recent selfie had tagged a secret rooftop in NYC that looked suspiciously like the private terrace of the Langston penthouse. And now she was making her public debut as Andrew's companion, smiling as if she hadn't just bulldozed a marriage. But this wasn't just a betrayal. It was a debut performance. Andrew knew this gala mattered. It was where he schmoozed with venture capitalists, earned credibility with board members, and whispered ideas to the media's favorite columnists. And yet, in the middle of all that, he chose this moment to go public with his affair. Because in this world of gleaming surfaces and polite brutality, perception was more powerful than truth. He wanted people to see Madison, to see Lily watching. And they did. Lily felt it in the glances, the barely muted gasps, the sympathetic smiles that felt more like eulogies. She was being cast aside in real time, and no one said a word. No one except one man. Victor Hammond, an aging venture capitalist with sharp eyes and sharper instincts, approached Lily near the bar. "You always had more backbone than he did," Victor said quietly, sipping his scotch. "He's playing chess with checkers." She blinked, startled. "Excuse me?" Victor smirked. "I've seen this game before. Seen it crash harder than the dot-com bubble. Don't let him erase you, Lily. That's what men like him do. Rebrand their women as phases. Don't be a phase." With that, he walked away. It was the first kind word she'd heard all night. Back at the penthouse, days later, Lily looked around the cold, curated space. She had tried so hard to make this her home, but it never was. It was a set. And now that her role as the adoring wife no longer served the narrative, she'd been written out of the script. But something had shifted inside her. Something that couldn't be reversed. This wasn't her stage anymore. And it never would be again. Andrew Whitmore didn't start off as a villain. At least not in the way villains usually begin. There were no lightning bolts, no dramatic betrayals at the start, just a charming smile, a sharp mind, and a hunger for more. More money, more influence, more admiration. But as his world expanded, so did his sense of entitlement. And somewhere along the way, the man who once kissed Lily's forehead every morning became a stranger who now plotted to take her child. From the outside, Andrew was a textbook success story. A tech prodigy who started coding in his garage, graduated Stanford with offers from Google, and rejected them all to build something of his own. He launched his first company by the age of 25, failed by 26, and rebuilt a newer one by 27, Whitmore Tech. It was sleek, AI-driven, education-focused, and most importantly, profitable. By 30, he was on magazine covers, Forbes, Wired, Fast Company. Words like visionary and disruptor were thrown around like candy at a parade. What the articles didn't mention was how Andrew gradually began shedding the parts of his life that didn't fit his evolving narrative, including his wife, especially his wife. At home, he grew distant, cold, strategic. Lily began to feel less like a partner and more like a liability, an outdated app in a world of endless upgrades. She didn't look the part of a tech mogul's wife anymore, not when she wore flats and minimal makeup, not when she preferred nursery catalogs to fashion lookbooks. Then came Madison Vale. Madison wasn't subtle. That was part of her brand. She was loud, sultry, stunning in a way that made people stare and then pretend they weren't. Her Instagram was a perfectly curated feed of yacht selfies, workout reels, and morning gratitude videos shot in five-star hotel robes. She once described herself as a disruption muse, whatever that meant, and had built a sizable following by dating men like Andrew. She wasn't a surprise. She was a symptom. She met Andrew at a conference in Austin where she moderated a panel on women in emerging tech. She wasn't qualified. She didn't need to be. Andrew liked her fire, or maybe he just liked the way she looked at him like he was already a god. What began as flirtation became something more. DMs that turned into dinners, then weekend trips for investor meetings, and finally, her moving into the penthouse while Lily was still living there. That part, Lily learned later. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was layered in deception, disrespect, and something far more sinister: calculated replacement. Andrew didn't want to just have an affair. He wanted to rebrand, and Lily was no longer on brand. When she confronted him days after the gala, he didn't deny it. He didn't even apologize. He stood at the kitchen island sipping cold brew from a crystal tumbler and said flatly, "This is better for both of us." She stared at him in disbelief. "Better? You're cheating on your pregnant wife and parading her around town. You humiliated me." Andrew's gaze didn't waver. "It's not personal, Lily. We've outgrown each other. You've gone soft. You want quiet mornings and storybooks. I want legacy, vision, growth." Lily's hands trembled. "We're having a child, Andrew." "I know, and I plan to raise him with stability. I already filed for custody." The words hit her like a punch. He wasn't just discarding her, he was trying to erase her. In his world, a single father and powerful CEO raising a child post-divorce was a great press angle: empowering, noble, manageable. A pregnant wife with tearful interviews and a potential lawsuit? That was messy, dangerous, bad for valuation. That's when Lily realized this wasn't about love. It never was. This was a power move. He had hired a PR firm months ago and a top-tier custody lawyer the same week Lily announced her pregnancy. He'd already planted stories in tech media about his mature separation and desire for active fatherhood. He painted himself as the victim of an amicable but emotionally distant marriage. It was a script, and she was supposed to play her part quietly. Lily refused. Madison, meanwhile, took great joy in her new position. She posted selfies from inside the penthouse, careful never to tag the location, but always recognizable to those who knew. She posted cryptic captions like, "Real love doesn't ask you to shrink, and some things bloom when others wither." She wore Lily's robes, sat in Lily's chair, even drank coffee from the mommy-to-be mug Lily had received as a gift. When Lily asked Andrew to at least be discreet, for the sake of their unborn child, he shrugged. This is the world now. People move on. But what he didn't realize, what he never saw coming, was that Lily wasn't moving on. She was planning her counterstrike, because the real villain wasn't Madison. She was just a pawn, a glamorous, disposable pawn. The real architect behind the betrayal was Andrew Whitmore, a man so drunk on success that he mistook cruelty for clarity and control for strength. He believed Lily was weak because she was quiet. He believed she'd surrender because she didn't scream. He didn't know that she had already called her lawyer. He didn't know that the baby she carried wasn't just her son, it was her legacy too, and she would protect it with everything she had. The betrayal wasn't a single event. It was a storm, and the thunder rolled in just 1 week after the gala. Lily had stayed quiet, even graceful, while the city whispered. The tech tabloids ran their pieces. Whitmore power couple separates quietly as company soars, with photos of Andrew and Madison at a fundraiser in Brooklyn. Her name was mentioned only once, brief, cold. Sources say his wife, who is expecting, has relocated temporarily. Lily hadn't relocated. She'd been forced out. Andrew had changed the security code to the penthouse while she was at a prenatal appointment. She returned home, groceries in one hand and ultrasound photos in the other, to find herself locked out of her own home. There was a sleek black envelope taped to the door. Temporary living arrangement, written in legalese by Andrew's attorney. Inside was the address of a corporate rental. A sterile 2-bedroom unit with white walls and no warmth. A suitcase of her belongings had been delivered already. No warning. No discussion. Just a message: you are no longer welcome. She stood in the hallway, trembling, the cold metal of the doorknob no longer hers. A building staff member approached and gently said, "Mrs. Whitmore." "Mr. Whitmore instructed us not to allow access." "I'm so sorry." He couldn't even say it to her face. Lily didn't cry. Not then. She walked away with her back straight and her baby kicking gently under her ribs like a promise that she wasn't alone. But the real public blow came 2 days later, at a Women in Tech Awards brunch, an event Lily used to help organize. She hadn't planned on attending, but her name was still listed as one of the founding contributors, and her inbox filled with emails asking, "Will you be there?" She said yes, because why should she hide? She wore a soft blush-colored wrap dress that hugged her bump perfectly and kept her makeup minimal. Classic Lily. She walked into the rooftop ballroom, chin high, heart steady, praying for 5 minutes of dignity. It didn't last. Andrew was there. And so was Madison. They walked in holding hands, pausing for photos under the Women in Tech floral arch like it was a red carpet event. Madison wore a white pantsuit, mocking bridal wear, with her hair slicked back and a diamond necklace Lily recognized from her own jewelry box. Andrew whispered something in her ear, and she laughed theatrically, tilting her head like they were in a commercial for luxury seduction. Then they saw Lily. She stood across the room, a plate of fruit untouched in her hand, and for one brief moment Andrew's face twitched. Not guilt, not regret, just annoyance, like she had ruined the frame. Madison didn't flinch. In fact, she smirked, turned toward the nearest group of women and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "I'm just glad Andrew finally found someone who adds value, not someone who drains it." Lily's stomach twisted. The women around her turned, some with shock, others with poorly hidden curiosity. The kind of moment where people pretend to sip their drinks while hanging on every word. One woman, a startup founder Lily had once mentored, muttered under her breath, "Oh no, she didn't." But Madison wasn't done. She brushed past Lily and added, "It takes more than a womb to build a legacy." The words hit like acid. Lily froze. She could feel every eye in the room shifting to her, watching, waiting, wondering if the betrayed wife would break, but she didn't. She set her plate down, smoothed her dress, walked right up to Madison and said, loud and clear, "You'll never understand value, Madison, because value doesn't scream for attention. It builds in silence, and when it's ready, it owns the room." There was a moment of stunned silence. Then a voice from the back, a venture capitalist named Yasmin Cho, called out, "Well said, Lily." The room shifted. Madison's smirk faltered. Andrew tugged her arm and tried to lead her away, but the damage was done. It wasn't a fight, it was a coronation. Lily didn't stay for dessert. She left with her pride intact and her message delivered. But the next morning, her phone buzzed with a storm of notifications. Someone had recorded the moment and posted it on social media. Pregnant ex-wife of Andrew Whitmore claps back at mistress in power move. The clip went viral. People were commenting, reposting, writing threads about Grace under fire and women refusing to be silenced. She didn't ask for attention, but attention came. Even brands started reaching out, asking if she wanted to collaborate. She ignored most of them. But one email stood out. Subject line, "You deserve better. Let's talk." It was from a name she hadn't seen in years. Cassidy Rain, CEO of Rain Interiors, one of the top luxury firms in New York. They'd met once briefly at a networking mixer. Lily had given Cassidy free feedback on a showroom layout, and Cassidy had said, "Call me when you want to run your own empire." She hadn't called. But maybe now was the time. Because Andrew hadn't just disrespected her, he'd made her visible, and that visibility had turned into fuel. Still, the court petition loomed. He wanted full custody, and he wasn't backing down. The day after the brunch, a manila envelope arrived via courier. Inside, a motion for emergency custody hearing, filed under the premise that Lily was emotionally unstable and unable to provide consistent care. It included screenshots of old texts taken out of context, a doctor's note from his therapist, and even a sworn statement from his assistant claiming Lily once lashed out in the office lobby. He wasn't fighting fair. He wasn't just trying to win. He was trying to destroy her. But what Andrew didn't know was that Lily had started recording everything. And soon, the truth would no longer be whispered, it would be broadcast. In the days following the viral brunch confrontation, Lily found herself in a strange limbo between admiration and agony. Her social media inbox was flooded with messages, some applauding her strength, others begging for interviews, and a few offering brand partnerships she couldn't even begin to understand. Women she didn't know called her brave. Influencers reposted her words over soft music with captions like, "This is what strength looks like." But strength wasn't what Lily felt. In truth, she was unraveling. Her phone rang nonstop. Her lawyer wanted to strategize. Cassidy Rain wanted to meet. Her OBGYN wanted her stress levels monitored. Her parents called every day, worried but powerless from 1,000 miles away. Even the doorman at her new apartment asked with quiet concern, "Are you okay, ma'am?" And still, Lily said yes. Yes, I'm okay. Yes, I'm strong. Yes, I'm handling it. She was lying. At night, the walls felt too thin. The windows too quiet. She missed the soft creak of their penthouse floor, the rhythmic hum of Andrew's espresso machine, even if he rarely made coffee for her. The silence now felt like punishment. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat more than a few bites of toast, couldn't look in the mirror without seeing someone she no longer recognized. The custody battle consumed her. It was scheduled just 3 weeks before her due date. 3 weeks. She had expected these final weeks of pregnancy to be peaceful. Baby books, crib assembly, maybe even awkward belly photos she'd treasure later. Instead, her world was full of legal documents, character witnesses, and statements crafted to make her look unfit. Andrew had filed motions so aggressive they bordered on cruelty. He said she was unstable, said she had emotional outbursts that endangered their unborn child. He submitted a photo, taken during a private moment when Lily had broken down crying in her car outside his office, as evidence of her volatility. Her therapist, Dr. Anjali Bhatt, offered to testify on her behalf, but Lily wasn't sure that would be enough. Because when you're a pregnant woman fighting a wealthy man in court, the burden of proof rests solely on your shoulders. You can't just be a good mother, you have to be perfect. One night, Lily collapsed, not literally, but emotionally she fractured. It was 1:27 a.m. The baby had been kicking more than usual, strong, urgent jabs that made her wince. She got up thinking a warm bath might help. But as she ran the water, something shifted, not physically, emotionally. She sat down on the tile floor in her robe and just stared. At the steam, the faucet, the cracked corner of a soap dish, all of it. She stared so long, the water began to overflow. And then she cried. Not soft, camera-friendly tears. Real, raw sobs. Guttural, undefinable, the kind that shatter your ribs on the way out, the kind that leave you breathless and hollowed. She cried for everything she lost, for the nursery she never got to decorate, for the nights she once felt loved, for the father her child would never really have, and for the woman she used to be, soft, trusting, hopeful. When the sobbing finally stopped, Lily sat there, soaked, shivering, arms wrapped around her knees like a child. She didn't move for 2 hours. Eventually, she crawled to her bed and pulled the blanket over her head like armor. She stayed there the next day, ignored calls, skipped meals, missed an appointment. The world kept spinning, and she stood still. At 3:12 p.m., her phone buzzed again. Another message from Cassidy Rain. Lily, I don't want to push, but I think you should come by the office. No pressure. Just a change of energy. I know you're in survival mode, but maybe it's time for strategy. Lily stared at it for a long time. She didn't have energy for strategy. Not today. Not with swollen ankles and an aching back and a heart splintered in 10 directions. But she also didn't want to feel like this tomorrow. So she got up. She took a shower, dressed, brushed her hair for the first time in 3 days, slid on the only pair of maternity jeans that didn't pinch, and she went. Cassidy's office was a lofted dreamscape in Soho. Glass walls, vintage art, and plants thriving in every corner like they'd been kissed by morning sunlight. Cassidy greeted her not with fake sympathy, but with a calm nod. Glad you came. They didn't talk about the baby, or the case, or Andrew. Cassidy talked about business. Your name is circulating, Lily. People respect what you did, what you said. That kind of authenticity, it's rare. I want to help you build something. Lily blinked. Like, what? A brand? Cassidy smiled. Not a brand, a presence, something that's yours, not his, not reactionary, proactive. You've got style, a voice, and now visibility. Lily almost laughed. She felt invisible. But Cassidy wasn't selling hope. She was offering tools, office space, branding advice, strategy, and for the first time in weeks, Lily felt useful. That night, as she sat on her rental couch with a heating pad on her back and a ginger tea in her hand, she thought about what Cassidy had said. You are not just surviving, you're building. The breakdown had been real. It had taken something out of her. But it had also created space for something new. And Lily wasn't done, not by a long shot. 3 days before the custody hearing, Lily received an envelope that would change everything. It didn't come from a lawyer, a court, or even a friend. It came via private courier. A man in a charcoal gray suit, silent, efficient, unbranded. He handed her the envelope with a polite nod and disappeared down the hall of her building without a word. Inside was a single note written in deep blue ink. Lily, it's time to stop surviving. Let me help. Eh. She stared at it for several minutes, her breath stuck in her chest. There was no return address, no business card, just a silver flash drive tucked inside. Lily hadn't seen or heard from Alec in over 4 years. Alec Carrington. He wasn't just anyone. He was her ex-fiancé. Before Andrew. Before tech conferences and penthouse walls and designer betrayals, there had been Alec. The boy she met in college. The boy who saw her fire and never once tried to tame it. He was older, wiser, and already wealthy when they met. One of those under-the-radar billionaires who didn't do press, didn't flaunt cars, and preferred anonymity to accolades. They were engaged briefly years ago, but it ended suddenly, too suddenly for anyone to fully understand why. The official story was different life goals, but the truth had always haunted Lily. She left him because she was scared. Scared of the intensity. Scared of being absorbed into his empire. She thought she wanted simple. Normal. She thought Andrew was that answer. But now, here was Alec, or at least his presence, subtle, deliberate, timed. Lily plugged the flash drive into her laptop. There were 3 folders. Whitmore Holdings Financials. Private Messages, Andrew and Madison. Custody Strategy, Internal Docs. Lily's jaw dropped. Inside was a gold mine of confidential information. Emails showing that Andrew had planned to file for full custody before she even knew she was pregnant. Texts between him and his lawyer discussing how to frame Lily as mentally fragile. Draft PR pitches about Andrew's redemption arc as a single-father CEO. Even a photograph, blurry but unmistakable, of Madison signing what appeared to be a non-disclosure agreement in Andrew's office. But the most damning file? A video clip. Timestamped 3 months prior. Andrew in his office, pacing. I don't care how it looks. If we have to pay off a judge, we will. I'm not letting her raise my kid. She's sweet. Naive. That's the problem. She'll turn him into, I don't know, someone weak. Lily's stomach turned. Her hands shook. This wasn't just betrayal. It was warfare. He was playing dirty before she even knew the game had started. She called the number saved under Alec Do Not Touch in her contacts. It rang twice before a voice answered. Hey, Lil. The sound of his voice almost undid her. Warm, familiar, calm. Alec, she breathed. What is all this? Leverage, he said simply. I've been watching from the sidelines. You didn't deserve any of this, and I couldn't stand by anymore. You got into his files? How? A soft laugh. Let's just say, I know people who know people, and Andrew's not as secure as he thinks. Lily felt her throat tighten. Why now? A pause. Then, because you're not alone, and you never were. You just forgot. She sat in stunned silence. Then Alec added, and be kindly, it's time he remembered who you were before he convinced you otherwise. The next morning, Lily met with her attorney. She dropped the flash drive on the table. I want to play offense, she said. Her lawyer's eyes widened as he scrolled through the files. Where did you get all this? Let's just say it fell into my lap. This is beyond anything we could have hoped for. Lily, this isn't just going to save your custody case. This could destroy him. Lily took a deep breath. I'm not here to destroy him, she said. I'm here to protect my son. But if exposing the truth is what it takes to do that, then so be it. Her attorney leaned back, nodding slowly. You're not who you were when we first met. No, she agreed. I'm not. That afternoon, she received a call from a number she didn't recognize. Ms. Whitmore? This is Judge Haynes' office. We've reviewed the emergency documents submitted. Based on new evidence, we're adjusting the hearing timeline and reviewing custody risk claims. Translation. Andrew's case was falling apart. She turned off her phone and smiled for the first time in days. That night, as she prepared tea in her tiny kitchen, her phone buzzed again. A text from Alec. Let me know if you want more. I've got eyes on him now. Also, I have a private chef making dinner this weekend. You should come by, no pressure. Lily stared at the message. A part of her wanted to run from it. Too soon, too complicated, too everything. But another part, the part she hadn't heard from in a long time, felt curious, alive. Because the truth was, she wasn't just a pregnant woman fighting for custody. She was a woman reclaiming her story, and she had backup. The kind of backup who didn't need cameras or credit, just quiet, calculated power. Lily didn't just return, she reintroduced herself. It started with something small, her posture. The way she walked. Shoulders back, chin lifted. Not forced, not performative. Intentional. Then came the clothes. Gone were the soft pastels and flowy silhouettes that said, "Please don't perceive me." In their place, sleek lines, tailored strength, a black blazer with gold hardware, a deep burgundy wrap dress that hugged her pregnancy bump with pride, not shame. She was still pregnant, but now she looked like a woman in control of it all, not buried under it. People noticed. Her first reappearance in public was at the Rain Interiors Spring Preview, a design showcase for elite clients, influencers, and press. Cassidy Rain, never subtle, introduced her with a smirk and a wink. "Ladies and gentlemen, meet our new creative consultant. You may know her name, but you don't know her vision. Yet." Lily stepped onto the platform. The lights hit her just right, casting soft shadows across her face. Not a trace of nervousness, no sign of the woman who'd once cried on a bathroom floor. She spoke clearly, confidently, about art, space, and emotional storytelling through design, about motherhood, about power. The crowd listened. Then they clapped. Hard. Her phone blew up afterward. Brands, magazines, TV offers, she ignored most of them. But one caught her eye, Elle Decor. They weren't interested in drama. They wanted her design insight, her perspective as a woman rebuilding, and her aesthetic. They didn't mention Andrew. That was key. She said yes. The article came out 2 weeks later. Lily Whitmore, redesigning life and legacy. Her photo shoot? Tastefully bold. Barefoot, pregnant, holding blueprints in one hand and a coffee in the other. A balance of softness and steel. She didn't just look beautiful, she looked undefeated. Then came the name change. She walked into the courthouse alone. No cameras, no makeup, just her and the paperwork. "Are you sure?" the clerk asked gently. "Once processed, it's official." Lily smiled. "I'm sure." Lily Keller, her original name, her real name. She wanted it back. She had taken Andrew's name because it felt like the next step in their story. Now it felt like a brand she didn't sign up to represent. She wasn't a Whitmore. Not anymore. The name change spread through the digital world faster than expected. People noticed the update on her Instagram bio. The press caught on. Even a podcast host mentioned it offhandedly in a Women in Power segment. Andrew noticed too. She didn't hear it directly, but the silence spoke volumes. He stopped posting altogether. Madison stopped tagging him. His PR machine grew eerily quiet. Meanwhile, Lily grew louder, without raising her voice. She launched her design blog, Found Space. It wasn't about trendy decor or expensive brands. It was about reclaiming the emotional relationship people had with their environments. Her first post, Designing After Destruction, was shared over 40,000 times. It resonated with women, especially those who had been through hell and were rebuilding, room by room. She started getting DMs not about the scandal, but about paint colors, fabric textures, and lighting tips. It felt like breathing again. Then she got the invitation. A private gala hosted by the Bexley Foundation, a billion-dollar charity led by one of Alec's oldest friends. It wasn't just a social event. It was a power gathering. Politicians, tech moguls, celebrities, people who mattered. People who made things happen. At first, Lily declined. She didn't need another gala, too many triggers. But then Alec texted her a photo of the event's seating chart. Her name was listed, next to his. "You don't have to say anything, but I'll be there if you decide to come. And you don't have to come as anyone. Just come as you." She went, but not for Alec. Not even to make a statement. She went for the girl who used to design dollhouse interiors out of cardboard and fabric scraps. For the woman who used to hold her belly and whisper, "We'll be okay, baby." She stepped out of the car in a floor-length navy silk gown that shimmered under the city lights like water under moonlight. Her makeup, minimal but sharp. Her walk, fluid and deliberate. She didn't look like someone returning to the spotlight. She looked like she'd owned it all along. Alec met her on the carpet. "You look," he began. "Whole," she finished. "I know." Inside the ballroom there were no whispers this time, just nods, recognition, respect. Andrew wasn't there, but his absence was louder than his presence would have been. Later that night, Lily stood by the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the skyline. Alec came up beside her, offering a quiet toast. "To evolution," he said. She clinked her glass. "To remembering who you were before someone convinced you otherwise." They stood in silence, comfortable, calm. A few hours later, she returned home. Her feet ached, her back hurt. The baby kicked like he'd just had espresso. She laughed, out loud. Alone. Happy. She changed into pajamas, wiped off her makeup, and looked in the mirror. Not to check her appearance, just to look, to see. And what she saw was someone unbreakable. By the time the boardroom confrontation happened, Lily Keller no longer needed to prove herself. But that didn't mean she wouldn't. The opportunity came wrapped in irony. A speaking invitation to the Whitmore Tech Women in Leadership Summit, a yearly PR stunt Andrew had launched 2 years earlier to highlight diversity and innovation. In the past, Lily would have helped organize it behind the scenes, handling logistics, curating guest gift bags, and drafting speeches Andrew would later take credit for. But this time, Lily was listed as a keynote speaker. She almost deleted the email. Then she read the fine print. Keynote topic, Building from Broken, Design as a Path to Power. Cassidy called her an hour later. Tell me you're going. I'm not sure, Lily said. Cassidy's tone sharpened. You've already won. But this is where you show them. Lily said yes. She arrived at the summit wearing a tailored white jumpsuit that made her look 10 feet tall. Her bump was visible, proud. No attempt to hide it. Her hair was pulled back into a sleek ponytail, and her expression was pure calm, controlled, unshakable. She walked past the registration table with the confidence of someone who had already read the final chapter. The energy shifted when she entered the room. Executives stiffened. PR assistants whispered. Investors blinked in surprise. No one expected her to come, and certainly not looking like that. Then Andrew walked in. Alone. He scanned the room, froze when he saw her. He recovered quickly, adjusted his tie, and walked toward the front like nothing fazed him. But his jaw twitched, his eyes darted. He knew. She was no longer the woman he once ignored at the edge of a ballroom. She was the story now. The summit was being live-streamed across 3 major tech platforms. Press were seated in the back. Photographers moved like sharks, snapping images of the audience's shifting expressions. Andrew took the stage first. He gave his usual speech: empowerment, innovation, corporate responsibility. All hollow, all polished. But when Lily's name was announced, the room leaned forward. She didn't use a teleprompter, didn't have notes. She stepped up, looked into the lights, and began. I spent years thinking silence was strength, that enduring was noble, that shrinking myself to fit into someone else's life made me a better partner, a better woman, a better future mother. I was wrong. You could hear a pin drop. Design isn't just about furniture or color, it's about reclaiming space, and I lost mine for a long time. Not just in square footage, but in voice, in value, in visibility. Today, I want to speak for the women who've been quietly erased while smiling through it. She told her story, but never said Andrew's name. She didn't need to. I was accused of being too emotional, too dramatic, too fragile. But I'm still standing, still building. And that is power. The room erupted in applause. Some people stood, cameras flashed. But the moment that shifted the entire energy, when Alec Carrington stood from the front row and clapped slowly, deliberately, every inch of his presence reminding the room that Lily wasn't just admired, she was protected. Andrew paled. After her speech, Lily exited to the green room. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but adrenaline. Cassidy rushed in seconds later. You just buried him without ever naming him. That was poetry? Lily smiled. It wasn't for him, it was for me. But fate wasn't done. The press pounced. The next morning, Tech Insider released an exposé. Inside Whitmore Tech's gender problem. Leaked documents show custody threats, power abuse. The flash drive Alec had delivered weeks ago, it had been duplicated. A trusted journalist received it anonymously, and they verified everything. Emails, video, Madison's NDA, Andrew's internal memos about discrediting Lily. The article went viral in under 2 hours. Whitmore Exposed trended globally. Investors issued statements. One board member resigned. And Madison? She posted a cryptic story of herself packing suitcases to a Lana Del Rey song. No comment, no tears, just a caption, should have known better. Lily watched from her couch, baby kicking beneath her ribs, as Andrew's empire slowly cracked in real time. She didn't gloat, didn't post, didn't even text Alec. She just folded baby clothes, humming to herself as the world spun a little differently now. The custody hearing, once a battlefield, became a formality. Andrew's lawyers withdrew the petition. In the official filing, it stated parties have agreed to a joint custodial arrangement with primary residential rights assigned to the mother. Translation: Lily won. Andrew didn't even show up in person, but his mother did. Elaine Whitmore, stone-faced, approached Lily in the hallway afterward. Not to apologize, not to argue, to warn. "You may have won this round," she said, "but don't think this is over." Lily smiled softly. "Oh, I know it's not over. I'm just getting started." And with that, she walked away. Heels clicking, head high, baby safe. The woman who once begged for love had learned to wield truth instead. And the man who tried to erase her now worked from a home office in silence, babysitting Alec's golden retriever on weekends as part of a mutual friend's ironic little favor. But that's a story for another time. The morning Lily went into labor, the sky was soft gray, misty, as if the city itself was holding its breath. She had just finished organizing the nursery, a calm, intentional space filled with earth tones, natural textures, and sunlight that filtered through gauzy linen curtains. Every detail mattered. The books arranged alphabetically, the bassinet carved by a friend from Charleston, a framed quote on the wall, "Grow through what you go through." The contractions began at 4:11 a.m. By 8:37 p.m., after 16 hours, 3 nurses and 1 very stubborn epidural delay, Lily Keller held her son in her arms. Miles Daniel Keller. 8 pounds, full lungs, fierce gaze. He didn't cry long, just one strong wail, like a battle cry, and then stillness, his tiny fingers wrapping around hers like he already knew she was his entire universe. In that moment, Lily wept. But not from pain, not even from joy, from peace. From the overwhelming realization that she had survived everything designed to break her, and built something pure from the ashes. She didn't invite Andrew to the hospital. She sent a photo through the legal parenting app, along with a message. "He's healthy. Born August 15th, we're home now." Details on pediatric appointments to follow. Cold? Maybe, but boundaries weren't cold. They were necessary. He responded 2 hours later with a single thumbs-up emoji. That was it. And that was enough. 3 weeks later, Lily appeared on her first podcast, not because she needed attention, not because she wanted revenge, because her story no longer belonged to just her. It belonged to every woman who had ever been erased, minimized, silenced, and needed a voice louder than their own to say, "You're not crazy, you're not weak, and you are not alone." She sat across from the host, a soft-spoken therapist named Nina Wallace, who asked gently, "Lily, if you could go back and speak to yourself, pregnant, heartbroken, terrified, what would you say?" Lily paused, then smiled. "I'd say, you're not broken, you're becoming. And the version of you that survives this will be someone you'd be proud to know." The episode reached over 2 million downloads in a week. Clips spread across TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, hashtags bloomed, "Becoming Lily," "Grow Through It," "Design Your Recovery." Women across the globe shared their own stories in the comments. Divorces, custody battles, betrayals, corporate takedowns. Her DMs were filled with pain, yes, but also power. A chorus of women finding the courage to leave, speak, fight, build. And Lily answered them. Not every message, but many. One message simply said, "I watched you reclaim your name. It made me brave enough to leave mine." Lily didn't want to be a hero. She wanted to be real, authentic, flawed, healing, and powerful. Not in a boardroom, not in a press release, but in her own skin. 6 months later, she launched her foundation, The Quiet Rebuild, a resource hub for women in transition, offering therapy stipends, legal guidance, design scholarships, and housing navigation for mothers starting over. It wasn't flashy, but it was functional, life-saving. When asked why she started it, Lily said, "Because I was lucky. I had access to help, but not every woman does, and no woman should have to fight alone." By the 1-year anniversary of her son's birth, Lily's life was completely different, but not just externally. Internally, she had shifted. She no longer checked Andrew's socials. She no longer flinched at the word custody. She no longer asked herself what she could have done differently. Because the truth is, she did everything she could. And it still wasn't enough for him, but it was enough for her. And for Miles. Alec was still around. Not as a boyfriend. Not yet. Maybe never. He was just there. Present, patient, protective. They went on slow walks, shared meals, took Miles to the botanical garden. He never pushed, he never pried. He just showed up. And in a world full of people who talk too loud and love too conditionally, that was rare. One evening, Lily stood by her apartment window, holding Miles against her chest as he drifted to sleep. The skyline shimmered. The city buzzed. And Lily whispered, "We're okay now, baby. Really okay." She wasn't who she used to be. She was more. more grounded, more aware, more unshakable. And if she had one message left for the world, it was this: don't mistake silence for weakness. Don't confuse stillness with surrender. And don't ever assume a soft woman won't burn your kingdom down when it threatens her peace. She was never just a wife, never just a mother. She was the storm you didn't see coming, and the home she built afterward. So the story has ended, our wonderful friends. Are you still here with us right now? If you're still watching, still listening, still feeling this moment, then maybe, just maybe, something in Lily's story touched your heart. And maybe it mirrored something inside your own. You see, sometimes life falls apart in the most public, painful way. You're betrayed, humiliated, left behind when you needed someone the most. But what Lily taught us is this: healing isn't about forgetting, it's about remembering who you were before they convinced you to shrink. As heterodoxism reminds us, you are not your silence, you are the voice that rises after. So if you're still here, tell us in the comments, what part of Lily's journey spoke to you? Let this be a space where we all grow. Drop a comment, like if this story gave you chills, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that heal, empower, and transform. You're not alone. You never were.